Okay, I'm going for a ride. Be back in a couple hours. Oh, I'm staying home. Wow, Graham, thanks for that really entertaining introduction to this video. This is going to be a little video talking about how you dress so you can ride your bike in the winter. We're in Cochrane, Alberta, Canada. We have winter, and it gets kind of brutal. So to save our sanity, we want to ride outside because trainer time becomes really painful time. So I'm going to show you the gear you need for road riding, mountain biking, and fat biking. With an emphasis on the fat biking part, I hope. So let's get to it. So let's start with some road biking stuff. I am basically sitting here surrounded by a bunch of the stuff I ride in. I'll try and make this quick so it's not super boring for you. When it comes to shoes, in the winter I will typically switch over on my road bike from my road style shoe cleat combo to a more mountain bike style. That is because on the bottom there are no vent holes, so I don't have to worry about extra air going into my toes where I don't want it, and I don't have to worry about stepping down in a pile of slush and then having a soaking wet foot, which when it's 0 degrees out is bad times. Another solution for that can be taping up the holes on your road style shoes. Can sort of fix that. So shoes, do something like that. Otherwise, if you're going to be doing a lot of gravel stuff, consider going flat pedals, flat shoes in the winter. It's surprisingly not that bad and might leave you wanting to explore a bit more. Invest in some booties. I have two different sets. A light set like this, which is just this thin sort of waterproof material, which does add like an extra 6 or 7 degrees of coldness that I can get out in. These are good down to like 0 degrees-ish. Then I also have these Gore-Tex things. These are insulated wind stopper, something or other like that, actual Gore-Tex. Anyways, these will get me comfortable feet down to -8, -10 degrees centigrade, Celsius, any of those kind of degrees. Anyways, get yourself some of those. Basically, it's hands and feet in the winter are your two biggest things that are a challenge to look after. The rest of the stuff you can sort out. When it comes to hands, some sort of thermal gloves. Don't go super tight. I also don't like going super bulky, thinking that you're going to get the coldest days in with gloves because you can't feel your controls. If you have to lift up over a pothole, it's like trying to lift up while holding on to uncooked bacon. You basically don't have any control. You have gloves, you get a little bit of extra coolness abilities with these lobster claw type things. I always feel really weird and uncomfortable riding in those. The ultimate solution is going to be doing bar mitts. Bar mitts makes drop bar specific hand covers, and knowing from what I know on my fat bike, bar mitts is the game changer. You can wear your regular light little dainty gloves inside them, feel your controls, and if anything you're worried about sweaty hands down to -8 or 10, not frozen thumbs, and thumbs is where all the issues happen. What other piles of stuff to have around here? You need thermal knicker bibs. Stick with bibs because waistbands don't feel good when you're starting to layer. So thermal knicker bibs, full length bib thermal thingies, very important. By the time you get into the fancy versions of these, you may even get into some that you get into some windstopper around the crotch, because you do not want to freeze a twig or any berries. What else do I have around me here? We'll go on to, I think the jackets and stuff like that is the most intuitive. You basically need thin layers. A favorite is something like this. I think a few companies make these. It sort of fits in that no man's land between a jersey and a jacket. But this sort of chest panel here is more of a wind stopping material, and then nice and light on the sleeves. Go with layers. On the outside layer, obviously end up with something windproof. The one other thing that can be a total game changer, we're close to the mountains, on the dry side of the mountains, which means we get a lot of variation in temperatures throughout the day. So for me, warmers. So this could be the sort of thing that you could start a ride when it's -2, something like that. You have leg warmers, you have arm warmers. As the day warms up, that can get chucked in your back pocket. And then as it cools down again, if it's starting the ride at the end of the day, then you can reapply as needed. Lastly, a beanie for under your helmet. These things, my only suggestion for these is get really light, get something that actually goes over top of your head like this, just so you don't have bits of ears slipping out and you find out when you get home that you got frostbite on the top or bottom of your ear. And also, when you go to buy these things, buy a few of them. I have spent more of my life searching for this than any other article of clothing or maybe any other thing I own. It always disappears into the bottom of your kit. So, for road riding, switch to mountain bike shoes or tape up the bottom of your shoes, get some booties, definitely some thermal bibs, this, thermal gloves, bar mitts if you're going to get really seriously into it. When you go to buy your helmet, actually, thinking of this just as a last tip, you may end up with a separate winter helmet. I know my summer helmet, not wanting to look like a balloon head, my summer helmet is a really good fit, but it's near the end of its adjustment. So for the winter, I actually have a separate helmet that this will fit underneath. And if you're going to do that anyways, then buy a helmet that has a little bit less ventilation. So that is your real quick road stuff, except for one last thing. Forget about the rules. You are allowed to wear regular shorts over top of your spandex in the winter. I've said it, so it's true. Regular shorts. This is the one thing that will get you through the colder stuff without freezing twigs and berries. And related to those rules, also forget about your rides having to be long, out and back type things. If you have to, do clover leafs, do like half-hour to 1 hour loops from home or from your car, so that no matter what happens, the weather changes, you start getting too hot, too cold, a mechanical. Winter, you got to take it seriously. If you're stranded 20 kilometers from where you started and you have a mechanical and you're already kind of all sweaty, and as soon as you're off the bike for 5 minutes, that sweat starts to chill you, you can get into some deep trouble. So respect the cold and change your rides. That also helps you if you've got a windy day, because you don't spend a whole pile of ride going into the wind and then vice versa on the way back, or having an easy ride on the way out thinking that you've got your clothing taken care of. Then when you go to turn around, you all of a sudden have double the headwind and double the wind chill. So those are my road riding, clothing, and a little bit of route planning techniques. On to something else. Okay, next I'll do mountain biking. Next up, mountain biking. Lost my train of thought there. How are you going to dress for mountain biking in the winter? So to start with, on our feet, if you do the clip-in shoe program, you are going to need either some really thick socks, but most people have their shoes tight enough that they're not going to be able to use that as a strategy. Some booties, or in my mind, the better alternative, flat shoes, flat pedals. Because this could even mean if you're into cooler temperatures than this is going to be comfortable for. Let's not forget that if you can find frozen mud, that might be one of the most exciting and fun things ever to ride. So riding in that 0 to -5 range can be awesome. Beyond that, what else do I have in my stuff around me here? You're going to have to still do some thermal bibs underneath your shorts, whether they're full length ones or knicker bibs. Do that. Then over top, wear your mountain bike shorts because you're not in an XC World Cup, so you can do that. That'll stop you from freezing the twigs and berries. Dress in layers as a final awesome way to do it. Do those thermal knicker, thermal full bibs or whatever. This is a new thing from Fox here. Let's just in case the word Fox is something foreign to you, that's what it looks like. These are the Fox Flex Air size 34. These are their fire pants. Fire meaning we actually get into, don't know if that's going to actually zoom in there, but a nice bit of insulation top of your butt and front of your thighs. So I would say anything below even 6 or 7 degrees on top of a regular chamois, below maybe 0 degrees in a thermal chamois. And these things are the ticket. That will give you both protection from trees, abrasion, all that sort of stuff, from snagging your spandex. The modesty stuff, these are snug, but they're not like tight. And you do just get that layer that's stopping the wind from getting you. Warmers, people don't really do that too much on mountain bikes. A beanie, when you buy one of these, buy 2, buy 3, you will always lose your beanie and have a spare one ready to go. When you buy your beanie, maybe even consider if your helmet is a snug fit and you don't have much adjustment room left, buy another helmet specifically for winter. And then also you can look at the ventilation holes to make sure that you can put a light on the top. My winter helmet basically lives like this. It's set up ready to go with the light on there. That way if you get called near the end of the day out for a ride, you're ready to go. Or just to be safe, rather than being trapped out there and it getting cold and getting dark, if something happens, a mechanical or something, you always want your light just to get out of trouble when, in Canada at least, when much of our day is spent in the dark. Thermal jackets, all that sort of stuff. Your gloves, you're going to be walking the fine line of still wanting to have some feel for your brake shifter dropper, all that sort of stuff, and some insulation for temperature. I find it pretty tough below about -5 to kind of stay in that world where you can feel all your controls and still have warm enough hands, so that is a tough one. On the shoe front, mentioning before about the booties, there are such things as clip-in winter footwear, so that is an option. I just always use flat pedals, so that's an easy one for me. I don't have to worry about it. That would be pretty much the main stuff. You know that you got to get like layers, you got to get a windproof layer on top for your upper body, something thermal down below. I would even consider taking a pack with me more often in the winter, and I will even chuck a bottle in there and some dry clothes, dry gloves, and an extra light in the back on top of the one that I have there, just in case something does go sideways, that can get you out of trouble. So that is my mountain bike thingy. Oh, the one last thing I'd say, which is sort of like in the road bike thing, if you watch that, which lots of mountain bikers wouldn't have. But plan your routes. Instead of going for the epic 50K loop out of the parking lot that leaves you at some point 25 kilometers from your car, when it starts getting colder, start like doing loops out of the parking lot that brings you back an hour later. That way, if you got a mechanical, you're not that far. And if you start overheating, you can get back to your car, take off all the wet layers that are all sweaty, put on some fresh dry stuff. Just go for 2 rides that adds up to your 50K instead of one long one that leaves you out there and kind of exposed to cold, nighttime, bad things happening. Yeah, those are my mountain biking clothing and, turns out, route planning trips. So, thank you. Next up, fat biking. Alrighty, so last on our list, fat bike clothing. How are you going to stay warm out there? What's the strategy? Some of the stuff just crosses over from road and from mountain. Some of it doesn't. Your regular flat shoes are going to suck because they're going to get stuffed full of snow. So that is gone. When mountain biking or fat biking was a new thing, I went searching for all sorts of shoes, found some that were somewhat promising. Things like these Forsaken shoes. But they ended up having these kind of loop type things that hold your laces at the top here. Those caught on your cranks, so that soon got turfed as an idea. Tried another model from that company and they didn't fit very comfortably. Ended up using these things here from Salomon. They're still not ideal because they've got a little bit of this sort of cutout type shape in the arch, but you get what you get, and I've searched all over. There have been some other people that have been in the store and found other things. I would say this is still, like if you're riding flats in the winter, this is still part of the market that has been somewhat ignored, even by the guys at 45 North who do other amazing fat bike specific stuff. But what they offer for a winter boot is this guy here. I do go to this as soon as it's colder than -6 or -7. Those guys from Salomon, not good enough anymore. These things are amazing, down to about -20, maybe colder, but I get kind of wimpy beyond that. The problem with these guys is that they're a clipless sort of convertible to flat shoe. So while it does give you at least a decent flat surface here, A, they're really bulky, and B, you can't feel the pedal under your feet at all. Given the choices, I'll take warm feet over feeling my pedals. But this is the one last crux that I don't know of anybody that's doing a great product in this market yet. If you do happen to go the clipless route, I personally don't think booties work that great for fat biking because you're stepping off the bike into deeper snow too often and your booties end up getting stuffed into your booty hole in the bottom. So you end up then with things like this. These happen to be from Garneau, but 45 North and a few other companies, Northwave I've seen, offer something like this. I think you still suffer with just the downfall of clipless in a lot of winter conditions, where as soon as you get some ice packed into your pedals, riding around trying to balance without being clipped in on a clipless pedal doesn't seem like fun. As an upside to riding your flat pedals and boots or whatever, the one thing I talk about a lot with fat bikes with people is it will teach you to pedal incredibly smoothly. So if you can learn how to do that with flat pedals, that will teach you to become a way better flat pedal rider, and basically even to not cheat as much with your clipless pedals because you actually learn to sort of scoop your foot a little bit more as you pedal. Amazing for bike handling skills, riding fat bikes. I'm like the card carrying member of the Fat Bike fan club. So the other stuff you're going to need, for sure, beanie. As I always say, buy those in 2s, 3s, 10s, whatever, because you'll lose them. A helmet that's going to still be comfortable with your beanie underneath, and as mentioned before, if you are going to buy another helmet to fit comfortably with your beanie and have it as your dedicated helmet for fat biking, winter mountain biking, etc., make sure that the ventilation holes line up well, that you can actually get a light on there, because this helmet will live with this setup strapped on here all the time. The helmet with the lights is parked underneath the plug-in, so I can just charge it and not pulling that apart. There's not much of a downside riding with this, even if it's during the day. The fact that you do have a bit of a safety if something happens to you on a ride and you have to finish the ride in the dark. There's some safety there. Related to that, I will also basically always take a backpack with spare gloves. So I'm wearing a pair of gloves, taking spare dry gloves with me. In many cases, my suggestion for gloves is doing these guys here. Those are bar mitts. As you can see, they actually attach onto your handlebars. Those will just live on there all season long. In the winter, it can be -15 even, and you're more than fine riding in regular summer gloves, which is a total bonus. You'll even find on a warm sunny day, get to -5 and you start unzipping the little front here to let a little bit of air flow in there, because your hands in -5 overheat in regular gloves. So a way better situation than riding with thermal gloves like this, where you don't have great feel of your grips, shifters, dropper, brakes, all that sort of stuff, and you still end up with cold thumbs. So that's doing this without doing the bar mitts. So huge fan of bar mitts. I absolutely love them. You probably can't see, but I've got my light clip sort of mounted on my handlebar there. So that light that I take in my backpack, because I take an extra light as well as one that's on my helmet to clip on the bars. I have a bag on my bike. That is if I'm going out for a super quick rip. I will, even in there, there will be spare gloves and just a dry, really light t-shirt, just in case something happens, even if it's a short ride. 2 seconds of being cold and quickly taking off your wet and sweaty clothes to put on a dry t-shirt, to put on some dry gloves if you're walking back, is way better than like half an hour, 45 minutes of getting super cold. On our bottoms, we're still doing our bibs or knicker bibs, and that's where you'll learn which of those is going to work best. But that is going to go together super nicely with the Fox Fire Pants. So I've read these off. These are Flex Air fire pants. So a little bit of nice fluffy sort of insulation, and this is across the crotch, down the thighs, across the top of your bum. These things are the game changer. You no longer have to feel like the dork in their old cross-country ski pants that just don't quite look right. So the theme for the fat biking stuff: ride flat pedals. Get some Fox Fire Pants. They make the pair I showed you, which are the super lightweight ones, which work to cut out all the wind, or most of the wind, and then you're doing that with your thermal bibs of some sort. Any number of different underlayers, from merino to just blend t-shirts with a longer merino with whatever. I mean, you can get pretty bulky, 4 or 5 layers. And as a last thing on the fat bike thing that goes hand in hand with planning your clothing is also plan your rides to do shorter loops. For me, instead of going for, say, a 2 or 3 hour fat bike ride, I will try and plan it so it's an hour ride back to the car. I drive a van. I have a big sort of plastic tub in it that I carry more than enough of everything, so I can always, as I get to the trailhead, I can figure out what's going to work best. I'll get back the wet gloves, which are certainly wet, get dumped in there. The wet shirt, put some dry stuff back on, go back out for your next hour. Partially you're doing that so that you can put the dry stuff on an hour later. There'd be some rides where you might be comfortable for the 2 hours. But if you plan that, going back to the vehicle, it means if you have a mechanical, you're not that far away. On your second loop, instead of being even more wet if you had a mechanical, now you're not as wet and you're half the distance potentially from your vehicle. So take that into account. Dress accordingly, respect the cold. Bar mitts are awesome. Flat pedals are awesome. 45 North is worth every penny if you don't mind a really bulky shoe. If you're going to be a little bit more wimpy like I was until I found those, you're either doing something like this or you're going to ride with something even more bulky than that, and that's going to just lose a little bit of your footing. That is pretty much it for dressing properly to be comfortable on your fat bike. That was the end of fat bikes, mountain bikes, road bikes. Get out there, enjoy, be safe, respect the cold, have fun. Ciao.